3 o'clock, so let's get started.
Yeah.
All right, Economic Development or Economic Tourism and Tourism Development Commission. All right, so let's see, call to order, and we have minutes. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to review those from February 26th, 2 weeks ago. Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. No additions or corrections, obviously. Okay, thank you. Chairman's report. I have very little to report because we just met 2 weeks ago, but Jamie and I just had some informal discussions about business attraction and priorities for what those businesses should be, how to go about that, and so as a result of that, Jamie offered to present today, and it's an agenda item, a little bit more about business attraction efforts that the department is conducting. So that is about it for Chairman's report. And we have guest speaker Cindy Genther today, real estate agent and broker from Rock Hall, right? Flynn Company and Rock Hall Properties, right?
Yeah.
Correct. Great. Well, you please come. We're ready for you. I know you always do a tremendous amount of research and have a great presentation. So we look forward to it.
In there for you.
And I've seen a sneak peek, so it's great.
That'll,
It is a
microphone?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Oh, I don't know that we don't need it. Thank you all for coming, familiar faces, and ask Christina to join us as well because she can hopefully provide a little more insight on this, on our real estate conversation as well. So thank you so much. Just in preparing for this meeting, I went back through my notes, and my first presentation on this same very topic was given to the Economic Development Commission in 2012.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, boy. And boy, were we in a different market then. Holy crow. We were recovering from a very, very severe downturn in our market. And now we're looking at a very different perspective on our real estate market here in the county. So I'm Cindy Genther. I am broker with Rock Hall Properties. I'm also the Maryland broker for the Flynn Company, which is a commercial real estate company serving the Mid-Atlantic area, who just celebrated their 45th anniversary of doing business in the Mid-Atlantic area. Rock Hall Properties this year will turn 15. So we've got a bit of a history behind us as well. So we're very anxious to talk to you about what's going on in the real estate market these days. There you go. Okay. So as far as I always start with a summary, here's where we are versus here's where we were last year. Unit sales were up slightly this year. 315 units sold. These are residential homes, residential sales that occurred. And the majority of the data we're pulling here is from our multiple list, Bright MLS. So that's sourced, the data source is at the bottom of each slide. So unit sales, relatively flat, prices up. And those increases in average sold prices, median sold prices also reflect the fact that we sold more in dollar volume in Kent County this year than last year. A couple of interesting things to note, however. You could see things starting to change a bit, and I expect 2025 will be a year of somewhat of a change here in our in the market throughout the United States. Interesting observation. The homes listed for sale at the end of this year, 71 listed for sale versus 51 listed at the end of last year. That increase last year from prior year was flat. The days on market last year versus the prior year were flat. The days on market now are up. The days on market at the end of, in the last quarter of 2024 were up to almost 50 days on the market, the average number of days on market. What are we seeing? We're seeing properties stay on the market longer, and we're seeing more properties come on the market. What does that mean? That means there may be some price sensitivities coming up in our future, right? I'm expecting them. Let's see how this goes. Because this past year, interest rates overall approached 7%. We saw a softening in the market because of interest rates being so high. But in the last week, the National Association of Realtors announced that for 7 weeks in a row, mortgage rates have fallen. We're now approaching 6%. That'll have a different effect on the market. So we'll see a little bit more demand from those buyers who are sitting on the sidelines waiting for the rates to come down. And I think that'll have an additional effect on the market as well. So a lot of different changes in play right now as we go into 2025. I think we're going to see flattening prices in 2025. We saw that in the last quarter of 2024, and I expect we might see that going into 2025. Next one. One of the things we started doing was taking a look at over time, history over time, and we look at year-end inventory, units sold, and median sales price. This has been usually just a lesson in economics, as inventories fall, prices rise, right? Vice versa. This is what happened as well this year. Although you can look at the 9 years of data we have here and see the pandemic effect that was in our market from 2019 through 2020. It would appear as though we might be starting to approach a little bit more normal market conditions, at least here in Kent County. And as inventories rise, we may be starting to look at price corrections in the future. But interest rates may have an impact on that as well, and maybe impact those sales figures as well. One of the things we look at here, we've always looked at here, is home sales by location. So we go, the data is pulled by zip code for Kent County, and we look at this year overall. So you can notice that the unit sales rose in Kent County, as we talked about on the prior chart, but we'll also notice that unit sales fell in Chestertown, and they were flat in Rock Hall and Galena. So they're flat in our towns, but increasing in the county. Couple of reasons for that. Number one, in Chestertown primarily was because unit sales fell in Chestertown because we started approaching the final build-out at the Village in Chestertown. That was a 20-some unit sales in 2023 that caused that. Normally, it's about 145 sales in Chestertown. Last year, it was 165 due to the availability of those units that D.R. Horton built out at the Village in Chestertown. I will mention that from the buyers that I'm hearing, they want to be in towns. They would prefer to be in towns. You always find people who want to have a little bit more acreage, and that's great. And that's the reason for the increase in the county. But the inventories inside our towns are flat. They're not increasing. So we're seeing flattening sales rates in the town limits. People like the idea of walkability. I hear this from Chestertown. I hear it in Rock Hall. it's overall, I want to be able to walk places, I want to go to the farmer's market on Saturday mornings, and walk there and not ride. So we hear that throughout for all of our towns, and it's one of the appealing aspects of Kent County, having lovely, charming, walkable towns. And it's one of the things that we promote, right, Alan? Okay, who's buying all these houses? Well, in the 21620, that would be in the greater Chestertown area. So anywhere in the 21620, 70% of the buyers were primary residents, bought as a primary resident. How do we know that? Because I went through every ESTAT transaction for all of those and looked at where the primary residency is, and it was in that property they bought, okay? Right, so the other interesting aspect was in the 21661 Greater Rock Hall area, 60% were primary residents. And Rose said to me, wow, don't you think that's a really high number? Do you really think that's true? Well, I went through, ESTAT is the source of the data, so if they're right, this is right. But I recall having this conversation with Jamie probably 3 or 4 years ago. And I said to Jamie, you're not going to believe what the number is that of primary residents that are buying in Rock Hall. I said, what do you think it is? And she and I both said, it's got to be like 30%. Maybe it's 40. No, it was 60% 3-4 years ago. It's still 60%. Shocking. Surprise number of the presentation. But anyway. So people are buying as their primary residence, okay? I'll tell you, after sifting through 143 ESTAT records for Chestertown and 59 of them for Rock Hall, I really didn't have the energy to continue through in the rest of the county, but I'm pretty sure it's going to hold about the same. In 2024, we saw far fewer investors and short-term rental buyers. And why is that? That's because prices rose by 10%, pushing that return on investment for somebody who's going to buy an investment property or a short-term rental. You can't make enough money to justify the purchase price that properties are selling for these days. Interesting. Don't know if that will hold, as prices may come down, but we'll keep an eye on that one. Another interesting statistic. What are people buying? In 2024, remember, it says 315 homes sold in Kent County. Do you know 222 of those sold for less than $300,000?
How many? 223?
222 out of 315 sold for under $300,000. That's amazing. That was another shocking statistic that came out of this year's numbers. One of the things that we see that's what sits on the market. The inventory that's not moving, older homes, maybe in need of repair. If they have oil heat, probably, people like to have newer appliances. They like to have all electric if possible, or electric and gas. But the days of I want to heat my house with oil, they're not so much. So those are sitting on the market. So, and here's the other interest. The sellers don't seem to be wanting to lower the price very much on those properties to get them off the market. So they sit. Okay, so anybody questions, thoughts? Increasing numbers throughout the rest of the county, though.
I'd like to think short-term rentals have also, I don't want to say, kind of leveled off. The increase in them has leveled off because people are starting to realize the unintended consequences. Plus, the county is paying attention and make sure that they're paying the lodging tax. There's a lot more scrutiny from I mean, not just in Kent County, but in general.
Right.
Maryland and across the United States for those properties to be paying the lodging taxes.
So I would
think some of
agree
that's
with you
factors as
there.
well.
I would also say that, I know we've had this conversation in Rock Hall where don't you think it's time to legislate short-term rentals? My comment has always been, let the market prevail. The market will take care of this problem. When somebody who owns a short-term rental is not seeing any income because nobody wants to rent, because there's so many short-term rental units available, they'll reconsider being a short-term rental. So market forces, they do prevail.
Cindy, just a question, I guess. Can you infer, or from your, anecdotally maybe, from your experience, the number, I'm shocked by the number of primary residences as well, but, overlaying that with the population kind of stagnation that we've had over the last, I don't know how many years, are they mostly local buyers then that are, or is it new people? What are you seeing that,
So,
primary residences?
So of those primary residences, it's interesting, a couple of aspects. A lot of the people who bought, let's just look at the communities themselves. At the village in Chestertown, the village of Chestertown, out of the 22 units that sold this year, 12 this year, 20-something last year, they were all primary residents, and many of them with kids, families with kids. I mentioned last year, and the same holds true this year, the elementary schools are seeing an uptick in the number of students my kids go to. I have 2 grandkids in Garnett, 2 in Rock Hall. Both of them have said they've gained kids in their classes this year.
Okay,
So-
thanks.
Heard the same thing at a 4-H meeting last night, that 4-H is seeing an uptick in the younger groups that they're
Yes.
bringing up. So there's definitely an increase in younger children population here in Kent County.
Yes.
And I've often said, I think if the centennial census had not been done in April of 2020, right after the COVID shutdown, we would see a difference in those census numbers
Okay.
as
Right.
primary residents.
Yes. And we're seeing it in our schools, we're seeing it in our sports clubs, we're seeing more kids involved in our community. If you go to the next, new home sales. Okay, so new home sales, this is pulled from the multiple list for new homes that have sold. I split it out, as I did last year, Village of Chestertown, Chester Arms. Chester Arms is off of Hack Road, and Chester River Landing. You probably know where all these are, so I won't dig into it. But, so this year, in the Village at Chestertown, the majority of the focus of sales this year were in the townhouse units. Last year, all the single-family homes sold. This year, the townhouses sold. Those townhouses sold between, round numbers, $250,000 and $270,000 on average, okay? With a couple of single-family homes thrown in there to bump up that number. The average sold price at the Village at Chestertown for new homes was $263,781. Amazing, right? Those are 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath homes that are typically about 1,500 square feet. That's the most desirable price point and size of home out there. And what I put here is from prior years, that when asked the question, what impact does all that new construction have on new tax revenues into the county? And that's where this chart points. There were 7.5 million in new homes sold, total dollars, at an average sold price of $342,000 for additional new property tax revenues into the county. Actually, that is the total of county, town, and state of 109,000. The only ones that saw town revenues were those in Chestertown, in the developments in Chestertown town limits. Where are we seeing additional new homes sold? In Rock Hall, it's out of the town limits. Those were on Lover's Lane and Crosby Road, Chestertown. The ones that are outside of town limits were Muirfield and Georgetown, and then in Morton, there were a couple of lots that were available for sale that are on Bottom Road. One of those had a spec home built and sold. There are a couple more, you can see when we get to the land sales, you can see a couple more on Bottom Road. Where is that? That's right next door to Knight's Landing. So anyway, those were the new home sales. One of the other things we also look at is new construction. Slightly different data, because this data comes from the towns and the county, from the planning and zoning offices, and it goes to certificates of occupancy that are issued. So once a home is built and moved into, that's where these numbers are coming from. You can see Chestertown last year, the impact last year of the village at Chestertown on those lots, the new home sales that occurred then, versus 6 units in 2024. Rock Hall is relatively flat, and then the Millington, Kennedyville, Massey, and Wharton areas are all part of the Kent County number. It is interesting to see that when you look at lots that are selling and new building permits that are issued, we're seeing an uptick in the county overall. So that's, I think that's a positive thing as well. Let's see. So interesting also, other real estate activity. This goes to, okay, we talked about the residential market quite a bit. So now let's talk to a little bit more. We had 5 farm properties sell. This does not include private sales or sales outside of the multiple list that I did not track. But 5 farm properties. One was only 23 acres. The rest were all much more significant in terms of acreage. 2 of the farm properties that sold were waterfront. Every property sold for more than 1.7 million, up to 5 million. And there remains very, very strong demand for farm properties. And mostly to keep them as farms. Those buyers, those farms that I have sold, of which there were about 4 or 5 of them in the last 3 years, were all sold, and they're still farmed. They're still being, well, in this case, they were all tilled. So just a little. So in terms of land sales are usually smaller, but Chestertown saw 20 lots sold. I'll mention 7 of those lots that sold were in Chesapeake Landing. So if there's something we can look at in the future, it's, well, gee, those folks need public sewer at some point in time. I heard when I sat on this commission, that was something that eventually the county commissioners would like to see, is public sewer in that community. There are failing septic systems, and a lot of land could be developed in Chesapeake Landing if they had access to, but a lot of the lots do not perk there. Chester River Landing.
Cindy, one question for
Sure.
you. On those Chesapeake Landing lots, how many of them, do you know how many of them were purchased by the adjoining property?
I do not know the answer to that, but I can find out and let you know.
Because I thought they were basically out of perkable lots there.
Not quite. There are still some, but You know what we do see there are some of the lots, as you have said, that are not perkable do sell to the neighboring property owner for not a whole lot of money, obviously, because they can't be perked. And a lot of those lots had gone through tax sale. And we're seeing a lot of the tax sale properties turn over. So to your point, yes, it may be adjacent or adjoining properties that are buying them, but they're buying them at a significant discount of, $10,000 for a quarter acre.
Right.
For example. So, anyway, it's an interesting, if we look for an opportunity of, where could we, I know it's an expensive situation to put in a new treatment facility. However, that's an opportunity for growth of more new homes in an existing development in the future, if we could put public sewer there.
That's a big first, Cindy.
I know. Well, hey, I heard it was on the list of potentials, right?
Well,
Okay.
I will tell you, just as a matter of information, that the previous Director of Environmental Health, Mr. Beskid, told me over 15 years ago that Chesapeake Landing was a priority.
Oh, good. Wow.
A
there you
priority
go.
location. He has since left.
So we still have it as a priority. It's good it hasn't fallen from a priority.
I don't know.
A couple of interesting aspects. Galena had 6 lots sell on Shorewood. And Betterton had 6 total that sold, scattered all about Wharton. So Bottom Road, I mentioned, Branchtown, Lynch, that area. So lot sales become more prevalent if you don't have enough houses to buy. So people are willing to consider building building on a lot if they can't find the home of their dreams in the existing home inventory. Commercial properties. Next year, I'm going to devote a whole slide to this. Commercial properties. What kind of commercial properties sold? So 12 commercial properties sold this year versus 14 last year. The number's small, so we can tell you every one of them. There was a marina that sold in Rock Hall, which I'm intimately familiar with that property that sold. That was Swan Creek Marina. We had one 12-unit apartment complex that sold on Calvert. That sold this past year. And 8 of the properties that sold were mixed-use retail and mixed use. We still have a strong interest from buyers in mixed use, as long as the properties are priced so that someone can see a return on their investment if they're priced right. And we had quite a few of those sell in Rock Hall. 2 of them last year, 1 just this past quarter. We saw 3 mixed uses sell, 3 sell in Galena, 2 mixed use, 1 was a church that we sold. And 1 in Betterton, and then the property in Millington that transferred, that was the recycling,
Yikes.
Drugstore?
recycling, no.
Infinity.
Thank you, Infinity Recycling. I know that, I sold this, I should remember. Anyway, so commercial sales, still good. Not a lot of commercial properties available for sale. And I get quite a few calls, particularly end of last year, beginning of this year. Here's what they want. Small company, been operating out of their garage or out of a rental unit somewhere, wants to buy their own operation, their own building. but they don't have a lot of money. Those properties cost less than 500,000. We have one that's under contract for, that was listed for 350 over in Queen Anne's County. At the end, you get a contract on it and you get 4 more people coming and saying, I want one of those. Can you find me one of those? So, yeah, what they want, good visibility. So Washington Avenue, some kind of good visibility, and somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 square feet. So, anybody have those? We can sell. Let's see, multifamily, none sold this year. There are 3 on the market right now. 2 of them are in Chestertown and one's in Kennedyville. Those are on the market. I can see those will turn over. Those will probably go this year because the market is to a point where, question from Paula, the rental market is super hot. If you have a rental property, you could rent it out within a week with a quality tenant. That's the key. You could get 20 applications and 2 of them might be qualified to meet a credit score, meet income limits, right? So yes, we have a strong demand for rental properties, but we could do our population a service by helping to educate them into why is it important to build good credit? What do people look for when they're looking for a tenant for one of their buildings? They're looking for a stable income, at least somebody who's had a job for the same job for the past 6 months. And so if there's anything we could suggest, it's maybe we talk to the high school about incorporating some of that financial literacy training into the high school curriculum. Okay?
Cindy, the other disincentive for landlords is the new requirement that a landlord has to offer the property to a tenant if they're going to sell it, which is new. And that's been a tremendous disincentive for landlords who want to have the flexibility to do what they want to do when they want to do it. And there are attenuated qualification terms for that arrangement.
Right. So the demand remains high, qualified tenants, and finding them remains a challenge. The regional home sales comparison, we always look at, okay, how do our home sales numbers stack up against our neighboring counties? Years ago, we always had we in Caroline County were always at the bottom of the list for our prices, for unit sales, and it was always like, oh, golly gee, but recently, in the last 3 years, our home sales prices and unit sales have increased well above the level in Caroline County, to the point where we're getting recognized even in our Mid-Atlantic, Eastern Shore Mid-Atlantic area as having some of the fastest home growth prices in the Mid-Atlantic area. Why is that? An example of why that is comes from an open house I did on Sunday, and it is, I did an open house on Sunday. Property was here in Chestertown, in the town of Chestertown. I had 15 people come through, which is tremendous because the demand, it was bleak in January and February due to weather. The first nice weekend, we knew it would pop, and they all showed up. 4 of the buyers, 3 couples and a single person, came Two of them came from Baltimore County, one of them came from Anne Arundel County, and one of them came from Easton. When asked independently, when I asked each one of them independently, why are you here? Why are you considering a move to Kent County? It's too crowded and congested where I live, and this is where I find this to be much more relaxing, and it's also affordable based on where I come from. So that to me said, okay, that's it. That's it in a nutshell, why we're seeing so many such demand. You can see the numbers are, you can see our median price increase is higher than the rest of the counties around us. Now, sold dollars, their average selling prices and median sold prices are higher than ours, so their actual dollars are higher. But if we had the inventory, we could sell it, and people would move here. Okay, so in summary, demand is still strong, particularly for houses priced under $350 for newer homes. The increasing inventory may slow price increases, but that's a big may. Because as interest rates come down, we're going to see a higher demand, and that could offset an increase in price, a decrease in prices. Okay? Expect mortgage rates to reduce. I expect mortgage rates to reduce.
We have a difference of opinion there.
We do.
But you're always the optimist.
That's okay. I will say regardless of your political affiliation, when the guy in charge is a real estate investor who swears by the fact that he wants lower interest rates, where do we think they're going to go? And what happened last time? So, okay. I'll be back next year, Paula, and we can have that. And we can figure out how did that work.
We'll see who predicted better.
My expectation, they're going to hover around 6 for a while. They're going to come down under 6, 5.5 to 6, second half of this year.
From your lips to God's ears.
Really? How about it, huh? And my optimist. Okay, construction costs. Get this, so construction costs for existing home sales, construction costs around $198 a square foot. New home construction is still $250. A lot of people I talk to, it's $300, depending on the type of house, the finishes you choose, it's $300 a square foot. Existing homes, even the new ones, they're priced lower per square foot. You get more for your dollar if you buy existing homes. I mentioned short-term rentals and investor buyers are down. I see that continuing. I see that continuing. Buyers. This was a question. I always like to look at who buys with what. In the past year to year and a half, 2 years, we've seen a lot of cash buyers, a whole lot of cash buyers. In this past year, 32% of the people who bought homes, these are buyers who buy homes, 32% bought them with cash, 48% used conventional financing, and 20% were FHA or VA. And the demand that exceeds supply for rentals. Now, one of the questions was first-time home buyers. That was a question that Paula had mentioned. So I talked with one of the lenders we use often, because this data is best to come from a lender, in my opinion, because I don't see a lot of, if I had to answer that question, the number would be 10%, first-time home buyers. However, Christina and I talked with other lenders that we use, and the lender I talked to said 43% first-time home buyers. But that was probably a combination of 43% first-time home buyers and first-time Maryland home buyers. That kind of makes a little more sense. Yours was even higher than that.
Yes, Trent said that it was about 75% first-time home buyers, and that was a combination of having never bought a home before and being a first-time home buyer, versus 25% that was investors, I think he said, or second homes, vacation homes,
Right.
things like that.
So our lenders are seeing a high number of first-time home buyers and/or first-time Maryland home buyers. That would stand to reason. We see a lot of folks moving into this area as either retirement home or second home, well, retirement home as a primary residence. A lot of the folks who were remote workers were still, much of the private sector remote working force is still working remotely. Many of them are. So we're still seeing the benefit of those people buying homes here. Your thoughts,
Oh,
Christine?
that's exactly right. I have a lot of buyers who are coming from out of state, or even in-state, but in the larger communities that are coming here to retire. Some secondary homes, but mostly primary.
Right.
I just wonder how many of the first-time buyers are really first-time buyers, and I suspect it's a minuscule number based on my conversations with people and not seeing young people who have never owned a home come in the door. And I agree with you completely that I think a lot of those buyers, if not the vast majority, are coming from out of state, having already owned a home, but qualifying for the lower transfer
First-time Maryland
cost.
home.
Yeah.
I would say that, except that the Village of Chestertown made a big difference in the younger buying.
But in absolute numbers,
That's not, you're correct. It's not a huge, I mean, we're talking last year 22, this year 12. But that goes to we've always had this conversation. How do we get more kids in our schools? How do we get more? You build the houses and then they'll come,
that's true.
If you build the houses, affordable types of houses that they want to buy, they will come. I relay the same comment that one of my daughters who lives in Coventry Farms has. I talked to 2 or 3 of her neighbors who work on the Western Shore, one of them in DC. Why did you buy here? They still work. They still commute every day. Why? I kept driving east until I found a home I liked and I could afford. And then I bought it. And they bought it here. So, and those are people with kids. So, that's what we want. Anyway, any questions?
Any questions? That was
I think you did a
excellent.
great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, great
Oh,
presentation.
thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for
Now,
coming.
let's find a few more of those really great project development kind of things that we could all,
Credit score, I would like the opportunity to mention that I know that BB&T works a lot with preparing people to increase their credit score so they can get pre-approved for a home mortgage, and Ken Attainable Housing has similar programs as well. Bidshore Community Foundation, I'm not saying that right.
yeah, I think you're.
That's right.
No,
Oh, okay.
I'm talking, Rural Maryland Community Corporation has a housing office, it's rural something, RCDC. They have a housing, on Lynchburg Street, a housing office, and they do some of that as well. But I would say BB&T and Ken Attainable Housing, they have solidified programs if you have somebody that needs that personal assistance
Which is
to
now
get ready.
Truist, I think now.
I was going to say,
BB&T.
Truist.
BB&T is.
Yes, thank you.
Well,
I'm going back like 3 or 4 years.
I'll mention that most lenders will work with a buyer I've had lenders work with a buyer for over a year to get them to qualify for a loan.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
And Truist also does financial literacy classes at the high school.
Oh, good.
I do know.
Yeah.
I don't know how many or how often, but I do know that they do have a presence at the high school with those.
Dan, question for you. Didn't the legislature pass a financial course curriculum requirement for Maryland schools?
I'm not sure about that off the top of my head.
I know it was up for debate several years ago, and there were bills that went forward that I thought were passed.
I don't remember that at all, Paul, but
I
haven't looked into it, yeah.
Do you know if they have
We can
any
look.
classes in financial awareness for the high school?
I can't tell you for
Okay.
sure. I know it is something that is discussed. I don't know if there are dedicated classes to it at this point.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Cindy.
Staff reports.
Yes. Give me 1 second, so I'll know what I'm going back and looking at. Okay, staff reports. So we are working on the calendar year 2024 strategic plan update presentation for the April ETDC meeting. Rose and Shallon completed it yesterday, and we just need to review it and see if there's anything we need to add there. So we'll have that ready for the April meeting. The EDA, Economic Development Administration, which is a federal grant through the Maryland Office of Tourism, is finishing up this spring for tourism spring ads that will begin shortly on the 3 major networks during the news hours and streaming on iHeartRadio. So that second half of that grant finishes up this spring. We have developed a website for KentMD250.org for America's 250. So we are working on that. I'll share that out when we get a little more content there. Katie's been working on that. And we're partnering with the other organizations in the town and the county to not do a whole separate committee, but to add a 250th Maryland 250 context to the events we already have. There we go. Because everybody has said, you know, we can't do something separate, but we can incorporate the events we already have. So we're working with all the partners on that. The ag grants, we got 13 applications, a total requested amount of over $95,000, and we have $54,000 to award. The grant review committee is picking up their packets and other information tomorrow, so that is progressing. The museum's driving tour passport went to the printer and will be ready in time for the WC All classes at Washington College, because the museums teach a WC All class there. So those driving tour brochures will be ready for them in time for the class to start. We're still waiting on the grant that we applied for $5,000 to print some of the newer brochures and updated brochures that Rose and Shallon have been working on. Kent County is hosting the Maryland Destination Marketing Organization meeting in June at Crow Vineyard. The last time that Kent did it, we did it in Rock Hall, so trying to spread it out throughout the county. And those are the updates I have for now.
Jamie, will we have an opportunity to review the updated strategic plan before it gets presented?
What updated strategic
I
plan?
thought you said there was an updated.
No, that's a report on the 2022 strategic plan and the activities from calendar year 2024.
Like annual.
Scorecard.
Yeah, like the presentation we did last year.
Roughly.
We
That's
did
like
one
an
for
annual-
2023's activities.
Right.
Just like, here's what we did aligned with all of those activities. So we're going to do the same thing for 2024.
So it's just a list of the activities?
Presentation of like which numbers we hit, what we still need to work on, those types of things.
Is that being made to us?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I've misunderstood.
That's okay. Yep, in April.
Okay, great.
Yep. And the only other thing, did everybody's okay with Civic Plus? You're getting your acknowledgements, and then you're able to get to the packet. Thought it worked really well this morning when Rose added the presentation from Cindy, and everybody should have gotten an update that, there was a new packet published.
Yeah,
So,
that came
okay,
through
great.
perfectly.
If anybody has any issues, please let us know. It seems to be working well. That's it.
Okay. And you're reporting for everyone?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And then unfinished business, I guess, back to you,
Yeah. So.
based on our discussion.
As Charlie said, there was, and there were lots of items in the priorities that was submitted by the commission members related to business attraction. And there's been lots of discussion, via email, individual meetings. And we just thought it would be beneficial to discuss it at a commission meeting, so we all hear the same thing at the same time. And we'll talk about current efforts for business attraction and some current conditions. The new website will roll out in the new fiscal year. That's really important for business attraction. 90% of site selectors go online for site research and community information. So having a website that is geared towards business attraction, that's user-friendly, is really important. So we're excited about that. We are implementing the ReSimplify software. Shared this in a staff report, but it's to list commercial properties that are available for sale or lease in Kent County. Cecil and Queen Anne's are also implementing the same software currently. So we're all doing it at the same time, which is really pretty cool because we can learn from each other. ReSimplify also partners with the state of Maryland for that continuity. So it's listed once, it shows up on our site, and it shows up on the state of Maryland site, where they have full business attraction teams and access to that. The software eliminates staff from manually having to go out and research this information and updating the listings. It will enhance the accuracy and the timeliness of that information. We're also working with Medco, and I don't know the acronym for Medco, but it's the Maryland Economic Development, I think, Corporation. Thank you. And their Maryland Business Ready Sites Program. This was created out of the executive order from Governor Moore for the Decades Act. To see, we're trying to determine, is there a fit to assist in developing assets needed? Properly zoned lands with utility to attract businesses, which we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But this program is not only offered to local governments or, nonprofits, it's also available to private developers as well, if it's for business attraction. So we have been reaching out to developers and commercial real estate agents to make them aware of these programs.
So does that just help them find a site, or there's
Two of the
financing there
Yeah,
as well?
so what we know so far, there's 3 different programs, and I don't know all the details of
Yeah.
all of them yet. They're expected to have all the details released in April. The first one is like a site, I think they called it a site readiness. I got my notes somewhere else, but site readiness, so it's just like it's up to $10,000, so not a lot of money, but just to kind of do a precursor evaluation of the property to see what the potential is. The second one is in some improvements, which is infrastructure, and then I'm not sure what the third one is, Charlie. But those 8, they're telling me that should be rolling out in April. But we have a list of developers. If you have anybody that has land for commercial development, please make sure you share their contact information with me, and I'll ensure they're on that list to keep them updated as well. I wanted the Rural Maryland Economic Development Fund, remember that was the $50 million, and $10 million came down to the Upper Shore Regional Council. And then each county decided how that money would be dispersed. In Kent County, it was spent on infrastructure for the Millington wastewater treatment plant expansion, and then also the Millington infrastructure project for the senior housing is what it boiled down to. But there was also some money set aside for regional projects through the Upper Shore Regional Council. And there's $245,000, which is a regional business attraction expansion marketing effort. The RFP was drafted and was just shared this morning, so we're still working through that process. Some of our attraction marketing includes, and this is just a few, is the Daily Record. We usually advertise there every year. You guys are welcome to look at that. And here's some of the ones that, these are all the ones that are recognized through IEDC and META as business attraction, trade and industry development, site selection, expansion solutions, business expansion journal, professional corporate sports yearbooks. We've done some things there, social media ads and boosting. But just, this is a site selection ad. As an example, a normal one page is $15,000. That's a lot of money. So we usually will not participate at that level, but then we get calls towards the end. We can give you 2 half-page ads for less than $5,000. Then we will try to participate. We usually try to participate when it's a Governor's Cup edition, because this gets lots of publicity, or if there's a Maryland or Mid-Atlantic focus. So you can see a couple of the ads that we've done if anybody's interested after. And we don't necessarily do all of those every year, but we look for those deals where we can get an inside cover at a discounted rate, that type of thing, or it pairs nicely with our industries. The 3 top themes for business attraction, I really do want to mention this, is real estate, sites and buildings, utilities and infrastructure, and then the workforce. And we have challenges with all of those. So, those are the things we need to work on to make Kent County more attractive for commercial development. And that all, goes back to the population and affordable housing for those, for those, that workforce to move here, that type of thing. So they look for factors, you guys all know this, but, workforce, logistics, real estate, business climate, utilities, community factors, environmental considerations, market access, which, we do, one of the things we say in our ad is, let me just read it so I don't lie to you, stumble. 19 million people within a 100-mile radius, to draw suppliers or workers or, whatever the case may be. So we do try to promote that Mid-Atlantic population and not just the population within Kent County. So I do want to point out that, in the United States, there's 3,144 counties and 35,705 municipalities compete for business attraction. So it's very competitive and it's very expensive. And a lot of those counties and or municipalities have a lot more revenue to spend on business attraction. And then, and I do have to mention, Maryland's competitiveness when it comes to the business climate is challenging. Maryland is the 5th worst state to start a business, 29th average growth in number of small businesses, 46 in office space affordability, 50th in labor cost, 37th availability of human capital, labor, 47th cost of living, 45th cost of living. And the regulations are challenging, whether it's, state, local, federal, as you guys saw from the responses from the businesses, just some of the challenges that our businesses have with EPA, MDE, MDA, there's a lot of regulations, so it does make it hard. And I saved this quote from Annabom, my guess is the impact of this, talking about delays, is hundreds of billions of dollars per year. He's talking about delays with permits at the state and federal level. In terms of lost investment in Maryland and thousands of jobs, when you make it difficult for businesses, they go someplace else. So, just keeping that in mind. We talked about housing, but housing is really not under our department's responsibility at this time. We obviously do get involved. We do try to work with developers on certain projects and let them know if there's programs out there that could possibly help them, especially with the cost of construction nowadays. So, when we did the 2022 strategic plan, we talked extensively about business retention, expansion, and attraction. And at that time, we did decide that retention and expansion is really where Kent County should be focused. So, Kent County is best served by focusing on business retention and expansion and entrepreneurship and small business development. But circling back to the list of priorities that were submitted and the compiled list, the commission, we need to talk about this and vote on a clear focus. And, we'll do our best to accommodate the recommendations made by the commission. But just keeping in mind that there are essential administrative tasks that are required for the department to operate. So we can circle back to those and parse out, what are the strategic things we need to work on.
I'm not sure that would be a productive exercise, frankly, because you've already advised us that the budget is going to be flat next year, and that recommendations we had made for additional spends were not going to be taken into consideration. And those recommendations all had to do with business attraction, which included the survey to identify the pros and cons of business relocation in Kent County so we could more effectively target potential
Paula,
businesses.
those were never discussed at a commission meeting, and it was never voted on by the commission as a whole.
Nevertheless,
I can't
We-
take recommendations from individual commission members. It needs to be discussed and voted on as a direction that the commission recommends to the county commissioners to take.
Sure, yeah, and I think we had offline discussions about that, but you said, you responded and said you didn't think it was a good idea or you couldn't do it. So, I don't know.
Right.
Maybe we do need to have a
This
bigger
needs to be
discussion
discussed,
on the
and it
record,
needs
sure.
to be a commission initiative. It cannot be discussed on offline meetings.
I understand, but you and I can have conversations and you tell me it's not even worth it, a discussion, so maybe we should
Charlie, I
have it here.
can't direct, exactly. We
I'm
should
not
have it
directing you to do
here,
anything.
and
I'm
it should be
asking
motioned.
about ideas.
We need a motion from the commission that's the direction.
that's fine,
that you
but
want to make to
at
the
this
county
stage,
commissioners.
at this stage,
For FY 2026, we have already submitted a flat budget, and that's what
Right.
we were instructed to do. But
so
if you want something-
whether we had taken a vote or not, Jamie,
That
would you
recommendation.
agree it would have not made any difference?
I disagree. If the commission had voted on it, and it was a direction from the commission and a recommendation to the county commissioners, then that would have been brought forward to the county commissioners.
And let's put it on the agenda to discuss in the future, because I'm getting a different message from you now than offline, so.
I think that's appropriate. And the other thing is, right now, you've made it clear that the focus should be on business retention, entrepreneurship, and I'm not sure what entrepreneurship means if, at this stage in small business development. That's fine, but that's different. That's different than attraction. And putting an ad in couple of ads in a couple of magazines in the hopes of attracting businesses is minimal effort. And it may need to be that way for the budget, but let's be honest, so that this commission can focus its activities accordingly.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't think it's mutually exclusive.
Correct.
I think some component of what we do, voted on or not, should include attraction. Because we're going to get calls from companies that are looking to be attracted. So we need to have that component along with new business startups, expanding the businesses that are here. So we should keep our conversation moving in the direction of including, not excluding, business attraction.
I agree, it's part of the strategic plan that was voted on before I was a commission member. So I didn't know that there was a priority, before that. I mean, I see those as equal, as equal value in the strategic plan, but,
Yeah, I mean, I would like to hear from the commission, I shared some things today that we are currently doing. How can we, change those, tweak those? What else should we be doing? Like, those are the kind of things that, and they need to be discussed in a commission meeting
yeah,
and a vote taken on it.
let's do that.
And that's fine. That's why we wanted to talk about all of the priorities that all the commission members submitted.
Right.
Well, we
And
had
that
the
we have talked
opportunity to
about
do that
reviewing.
last week, and there was
There
no
wasn't any.
input,
I'd agree with
I
that.
must say.
So let's schedule separate times by topic to do that. All right, thank you. So next item, public comments, commission members and staff.
Yeah, so, we discussed last meeting that recent legislation related to economic development and competitiveness has been moving rapidly. A prime example of that, perfect timing, last week was the sales and use tax on business services coming out. And given the state's financial challenges and current political divide, it is crucial to remain mindful that when we're speaking in public, that we share clearly, that we communicate, that our opinions, we share our own, and not those of the commission or the county, just to avoid any potential confusion or misinterpretation. Chapter 21 of the local laws, which is our chapter for economic and tourism development, states that the powers and duties of the director and the commission are of an advisory nature only. Neither the director, the commission, nor any member shall incur any obligations in the name of the county. So when I did the opposition letter for the sales and use tax on services letter, it had to come from the department. I didn't have the opportunity to talk about it in an open meeting with the commission members. Obviously, it has more impact if it comes from this commission. And then step it up one more, it has more impact if it comes from the county commissioners. But given the tight timeline as to when we could submit testimony, I had to go ahead and submit it. So on behalf of the businesses, just from the department. So, yep.
Chestertown Master Plan, Phase 1?
Yes, so I have a copy here. I just met with Sunny this morning. It is completed, and they have 6 priority projects that they have established. The plan is aligned with the town and their capital project priorities. It is a 10 to 15-year plan, very dependent on funding sources. And Phase 2 is the engineering and design. And then Sunny has offered to present it to the commission members if you would like to do that in the future.
I spoke with Sunny this afternoon, and she indicated to me that they would very much like to have the opportunity to present an update on the plan now that it's been completed. And I've looked through the plan, and it's very detailed, very thorough, very professional. And I think it would be a good thing to be aware of what they're thinking about with respect to Chestertown at this stage as we move forward.
Yeah, I'd agree. So with maybe a future agenda item would be great.
Yep, so which is the next
Okay.
thing on the agenda. So in April, we do have Dan Mattson coming in. That was a request from the commission.
And he's from the hospital?
No,
No,
Dan.
yeah, sorry, Dan
Public
Mattson,
Works. And
Right.
then the strategic plan, FY 2024 presentation. In May, we have Zach Royston from the University of Maryland, Shore Regional Health. And in June, we've got Scott Boone, which was also a recommendation.
That's great.
And do you want me to reach out to Sunny for July?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Got it. And can we get a motion for the April meeting?
Motion? Anybody?
So,
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Good, next item. Public comment? Dan, do you have anything to?
I have just a couple of things out of Kent County Public Schools for you. One, an answer to your questions earlier, Ms. Reeder. We do offer a personal finance class, and we also offer a Foundations of Business class as well, both at the high school.
Are those electives or are they
I believe they're
required?
elective, part of the program of study.
Have you considered making them non-elective?
I am not part of the curriculum decision-making team.
Well, I think based on what came out today and general public comment, that probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have it as a firm and required part of the curriculum at the high school level.
The state does set our curriculum requirements for graduation, and we do follow the state requirements.
I understand, but we could take independent action locally, right?
That is outside of my purview.
I understand, just, I'm asking you if you would take that message back.
I can
Because
communicate that
think
to the
it-
curriculum.
Because I think it would benefit not only the students, but the general community as well.
I also want to do a quick plug. We have our annual awards coming up, Teacher of the Year, Support Employee of the Year, and Promising Educator Award. We do solicit donations from local businesses so that we have some nice awards packages for the individuals. So nominations will be coming out. The school level nominations will be coming out, announced this month, and then we will have our awards ceremony in the middle of next month.
is there a date set, Dan?
For the ceremony?
Yeah.
Yes, the ceremony is April 16th. So, again, if you could share that with local businesses, we are reaching out to them as well through the superintendent's office, but we would like to be able to put together some nice packages and through our community businesses. Lastly, the Kent County Middle School project. We are continuing with design. We are in the design phase now. We are also engaged with the General Assembly. We have a bill in the General Assembly that would increase the state share of construction costs. So we've had a positive hearing in the House Appropriations Committee in February, and then we had a hearing with the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee just last week. They had some additional questions, and so the superintendent and our lead consultant were able to meet with the vice chair of that committee, Senator Jim Rosapep. We are feeling there is a lot of momentum this year behind the bill. There's a lot of recognition that this little Kent County Middle School project keeps coming up in the General Assembly, and they keep hearing about this, and they recognize, I think, that there is a need to help us out, and so we're feeling good.
Is Senator Hershey the sponsor of the bill?
He's the sponsor in the House, and then Delegates Grist, Aaron's, and Jacobs are the sponsors in the House. I'm sorry, Senator Hershey in the Senate.
Yeah, I had heard that meeting went extremely well and that the superintendent did an extraordinary job of presenting the case.
Yes,
so.
absolutely. So, that's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Questions now? Great, thanks. Thanks, Dan. Any other announcements, public comment? No? Okay. Motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Aye.
Second.
Thank you.
Jamie, you had said that you were available.
Got all that done in
after this
15
meeting.
minutes.